Zach with Wingard Wearables. You're one of 12 special people because you're going to watch this video all the way to the end. In today's video, we've got a big special project we're pursuing. So we're announcing it in this video. We are pursuing a modern, everyday carry, fully smokable pipe tomahawk. And this project, that product line, is going to be called the Lung Ripper. That was a name suggested by a follower or commenter on Instagram. That name is just perfect. Yeah, I have a bunch of notes I wrote to cover about this project, so I'll have to divert my attention to remind myself on the screen. But if you stick around to the end, the other story we're going to go over is how a Prius performs in the snow when you drive it. Very important story to many of you, I'm sure. Anyway, so in my hands right here is a spontoon pipe tomahawk that was made by my mentor, Jack Vargo. He made this in the early 2000s. Jack Vargo ran Beaver River Trading Company with his wife, Donna Vargo. I believe they started in the late 90s, and they ran all the way through till his passing in 2020. And when he started mentoring me, it was late 2016, I contacted him because I was interested in a spike tomahawk design, what would eventually become the back ripper tomahawk. And he had quit blacksmithing because of lung cancer. He was a Vietnam vet. He blamed Agent Orange, but he also, exposed his lungs to, coal fire, because he's an old school blacksmith. So he had retired from blacksmithing. He had made pipe tomahawks for years. And by the time I contacted him, those were all sold out. I did eventually procure these four spike tomahawks of different distinctive designs. The reason I got them wasn't just that I liked them, but because each design was different in size and weight and features. I used that as research because these were historic reproductions. He based these on archaeological finds, and that helped drive our current designs that we offer now. This was a Christmas acquisition I got from a customer who bought this from Jack Vargo back in, I believe, the early 2000s. This customer lived in upstate New York, near where Jack Vargo was. Jack Vargo would do tabletop shows. This is amazing in the hand. It is much larger. It's about a little over 20 inches long than these spike tomahawks.
A little lower.
I've been told to hold it lower. Sorry. This thing is just beautiful. It is definitely the most gorgeous and complicated tomahawk I've ever owned. And we're going to tackle pipe tomahawks, and it's going to take a long time. It is a very complicated project. Now, the reason it is so complicated, we're not trying to replicate a spontoon pipe tomahawk. We're going to do our own style. It has to have the same combative and utility capabilities of a tomahawk like we offer in our product lines today. But it has the additional complexity of combustion. So it's got a combustion chamber. It's got to have, when you're combusting this leaf-like material, you have smoke. You want to create seals with that. You have a tube to convey from the combustion chamber to your mouth. And so that tube has to be structurally protected during the use of the tomahawk. And if it's integrated into the handle like this, the handle's structural integrity cannot be compromised either. So there are quite a few complexities just because a pipe tomahawk inherently has combustion integrated into the design. And there are other, we went to sleep. Yeah, I got back. I'm technology challenged. It's also got to be sized for ergonomic everyday carry. I mean, look at this. It's so big that it goes off the screen. This is 20 inches long. The head is pushing 9 inches from spontoon tip to pipe bowl. This is our interpretation of a spontoon tomahawk for modern everyday carry. It's 13 inches long. You can wear this comfortably in your pants, but historically you could get away with carrying such a large object like this, but in today's world you can't. It's just too unwieldy. So there's going to be not only a combustion challenge, there's also going to be a sizing challenge, making it ergonomic and easy to carry. And then one of the last complexities is expense. This Tomahawk, I believe when the customer who bought it in the early 2000s, he said he paid $1,200 for it. And if you go with inflation, that's pushing in today's dollars close to $2,000. And there are reasons why these are so expensive. It isn't just that it's a hand-forged tomahawk head like these. It has all those complexities involved with the combustion event, being captured reliably and being maintainable. We don't want to sell our version of the Long Ripper, our version of the pipe tomahawk for thousands of dollars. We want to somehow make it worth hundreds of dollars, yet still have the functionality and the beauty, actually more functionality than this, and that classic beauty. So we will see how it goes. This is the first video in a multi-part series that we're going to go over to chronicle our journey in designing the Long Ripper Tomahawk. It's going to take a long time. We are working on supporting several product lines that we have existing. Actually, most of our products lines are sold out at the end of Christmas. So we're working really hard to restock the existing product lines. We got 2 new product lines coming out in 2022 that we're keeping hush-hush. We're working on those. We're managing the business as is. And I work a full-time job. So the Long Ripper is getting squeezed in on that. It's going to take a long time. I predict it could be easily 2023 before the concept of the Long Ripper, the idea, becomes a product line that's available to you. And it just takes time. Like our Back Ripper Tomahawk took about 2 years from idea to product line. The Empress Tomahawk took 3 years. The Stingray Tomahawk took over 2 years. And then here we have a pipe tomahawk, which is more complex than any of those. It could easily be 2023. So the next YouTube video we do will not be about the Long Ripper, but every now and then when there's progress, so we want to update you guys on. This is the Long Ripper Part 1. There will be a Part 2. There will be a Part 3. Who knows how many parts it will be. But it's going to be very complicated. And I left off one other thing. We want this to be capable of not just being used as a pipe for tobacco, but also for cannabis. And guess what? I don't smoke anything. But I am an engineer and I know what I got to do. I got to interview and do research so that we know if this is going to be technically feasible. Cannabis and tobacco probably have completely different combustion needs. They create different combustion byproducts and residues. They have different maintenance needs. They have different user experiences. So I got to interview some folks. I'm reaching out to some folks not only for the tobacco versus cannabis pipe smoking experience, but also folks that are living, that are alive, that have had experience making pipe tomahawks and can provide some historic context so we can see what context is applicable in the modern era. I know that was pretty dry. There's a lot going on, but this will be a really fun project. I mean, you guys don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know either, but it's going to be pretty exciting to see this come to life. Really excited about this Long Ripper project. Trying to think anything else. Am I leaving off anything about the Long Ripper?
Got your notes right there.
I do have my notes right there. What did I leave off? Nothing. Now, today's video is brought to you by the Empress Tomahawk. I told you we sold off almost everything of our product lines. Well, we've barely been able to hold on to Empress Tomahawks. They come in Molly size. They come this Molly compatible handle. They come in full size, 13 inches, and they come in right and left side carry. We have very few left side carries available, but I think we're down to like 1 or 2. But we do have a handful of these right side carry Empress Tomahawks, and they are our interpretation of the spontoon tomahawk. Now this historic spontoon tomahawk doesn't even have an edge on it. It's butter knife sharp. That's how they historically were. It does come to a point though. And ours is shaped like a megalodon shark tooth. And it's really amazing. You can't smoke anything with the Empress Tomahawk, but it is a beautiful, handy weapon. And remember that your purchases support not only our business, but our channel. So, if you already own an Empress Tomahawk, that's great. Share it with a friend. Get it as a gift. They're beautiful gifts. You may have forgot about a friend over Christmas. That'd be super awkward. We'll make it up to them with an Empress Tomahawk. Now, the other story we have, the Toyota Prius. Now, when I met my wife in 2008, she had a 2007 Toyota Prius, sky blue color. She got it because she hates to pump gas. She hates pumping gas with a passion. Like if we, because we're married and we borrow, like one takes the car out, one takes it back, that sort of thing. If I bring a car back with like low gas and she's got to pump it on her errand, I lose so much husband capital, it's crazy, right? So she got the Prius not to be like smug, I'm saving Mother Gaia person, like that was going on back in the mid-2000s, but she got it just because she hates pumping gas. But we wound up taking that 2007 Prius all over the place because the car I had was even less suitable for commuting. It was like a Mazda 3 compact car. It was really gross because of how I treated the interior of that car. And that's another story for another time. But I was surprised to find out that the Toyota Prius is pretty darn good on snow, for driving in snow. And we found that out the hard way a couple of times. We'll go over both those stories. So do you guys remember around, I think it was 2010 era, snowpocalypse, right? Washington, D.C. got hit with 36 inches of snow. It was like the snow of, it broke records that were over a century old, I think. And we had a wedding to go to. A very good friend of mine getting married, and the wedding was not going to get stopped by snowpocalypse. So we drove into town in the 2007 Prius, and DC was a disaster area. They did not have enough functional snowplows. They wound up, some of them were using like earth mover or like bulldozer type things to just literally push snow off. And they were gouging the roads and all kinds of things. It was terrible driving conditions. But amazingly, the thin tires of the Prius and the even weight distribution from the battery pack, it did all right. We saw many other vehicles getting stuck. Ours kept going. Let me get a little sip of water here. But yeah, DC was a disaster area. We had these rented tuxedos. People had shoveled the snow, and it was literally 36 inches of snow. I remember when we had to go out for photographs, because we were all I was in a rented tuxedo. And if you go to DC, hardly anyone has a child in DC. They all have like dogs as their kids. And so under these snowy conditions, you could not have, your tiny little dog going in 36 inches of snow. Dog, I don't even know if the dog would just refuse to go out and would probably take a crap in your house, right? So they walked their dogs on these sidewalks that were shoveled to the minimum width, because it was 36 inches of snow, and they let their dogs urinate along the entirety of the sidewalk. And so we get out in these tuxedos that were rented that we got to return, and it was a wall of yellow snow that we had to kind of shuffle sideways on because we didn't want to knock up against the yellow snow. So that was one nasty memory I remember. The other memory I had was when we were walking around, I saw a really big squirrel by this tree. And for some reason, I felt compelled to make a snowball and throw it at the squirrel. So I scooped up snow, I sculpted the snowball. And I mean, this is pretty complicated when you think about it, because it's this unknown projectile size of unknown drag. And in one throw, I lobbed it and I clobbered that squirrel. And I was really impressed with myself. So I remember throwing my arms up, I yelled, yeah! And I looked around to see who saw my awesome achievement. And a Capitol policeman was staring at me. He didn't do anything. He had bigger problems. There's some really deranged homeless people out there. But yeah, that was Snowpocalypse. The Prius did well. The second epic snow experience was after church in Delaware. We were driving back from a church we had gone to in Delaware back home. It was about a 15-minute drive. We live on the PA-Delaware border. It's normally a 15-minute drive. Well, the weatherman had poorly forecasted snow in the afternoon, and by the time we walked out, there was over 2 inches of snow on everything, and it was wet, soggy snow. And the wife and I did a choir thing, so we had nice clothes and shoes on and stuff, and it was a disaster to get home. We have a lot of hilly valley areas that we have to drive through in that 15-minute drive, and it was backed up traffic. Cars were failing to get up hills and sliding backwards. People were getting behind cars to try to push them up, and it was failing. And people were looking at us on this Prius like they would have their truck slide downhill, and they would look at us trying to do it in the Prius. And I said, just turn back. And we couldn't. You know why? Because my wife had to pee. She didn't tell me until we had gone, committed into this drive. Instead of going to the restroom in the church, by the time we're at the point of no return, she's like, look, I really got to pee. And I was like, oh man. And the stress, every hill you went up, you had to gun it just enough for momentum to go over the hill and then take you back on the other side of the hill. It was something. We were going past all these cars that were over, slid off the road and stuff. And amazingly, the 15-minute drive, which took 2 hours, we got home and my wife got to pee. So that was a nice, stressful drive. The Prius, those narrow tires, the even weight distribution on the batteries, very nice. It's a 2007. We still have it. It still gets 45 miles to the gallon. The battery pack could go bad any day. Who knows? But it's not as environmentally friendly as you think. Rodents will nibble on it and die of the wire residue. Our Subaru doesn't do that. It's made of a soybean derivative. They love chewing on that thing. So anyway, very impressed with the Prius, not the Subaru, in snow. How many minutes are we in this thing? 17 minutes. All right, you guys stuck around to the end. Share it with a friend so that 13 people will have watched it. And remember, be edgy.